My name is Mike. I'm 26 years old. Currently, I work part-time at a restaurant. I was an office worker 1 year ago, but after breaking up with my fiance, I started my job at the restaurant. I met Anne at the company I began to work at after graduating from college. Anne is a beautiful woman and someone who everyone relied on at work. When I came on board as a new hire, Anne was my trainer. She was kind and beautiful, and I fell in love with her at first sight. Almost all of my peers did. So when I asked her out to dinner, and she was happy about it, I was elated when she smiled at me. After that, we went out for dinner, and then began to officially date. A year after we started dating, she told me she wanted to get married, so I proposed to her, even though I thought it was still too early. We had already met each other's parents, and I was excited about our new life together. But then, something unexpected happened. Suddenly, Anne said, "I'm sorry, but will you break up with me?" And it was over the phone. At first, I didn't even understand what she said. I said, "What did you say?" "I must have misheard you," I replied dumbly. Anne sighed and said, "I'll say it again," and continued talking. "I'm sorry, but will you break up with me? I've decided to go out with Jim." Jim's been my best friend since high school. I had taken him to see her a couple of times when we were dating. I had no idea that the two of them were connected in some way I didn't know. I was so shocked I couldn't think straight. And Jim even said this to me.
"Sorry, Anne seems to like me better."
I was shocked and couldn't catch up with my thoughts. I was betrayed by my best friend and fiance. Moreover, I wanted to talk to them in person, not on the phone. Anne had quit her job and moved out of her house. Of course, I had to pay for the diamond ring I had given her and the deposit for the wedding venue. She took that money and never returned it to me. I thought about filing a claim, but I couldn't get in touch with Anne. I had no choice but to contact her parents. But her parents thought I had done something terrible to her. I had no choice but to force myself to accept the loss, and I cried myself to sleep. After that, I was depressed for a while. I loved her so much, so it was very painful. I had too many memories of her at the company. I couldn't handle my job and decided to resign. For about 6 months, I recuperated without working, and as my mind was gradually recovering, I decided to work anyway. I decided that working for a company would be too much of a mental burden for me, so I started with a part-time job. I started working part-time at a new restaurant near my house. They were looking for opening staff. That was the only reason. I had been working at a desk all my life, so working at a restaurant was new to me, and I learned a lot. The people at the restaurant were nice, and it was a very comfortable place for me to work. The manager, Kathy, was very kind. She taught me how to do my job very kindly and carefully. So even though I was a beginner, I was able to learn the job quickly. After that, I started working 4 days a week, and then I increased my shifts to 5 days a week. I decided to work hard at this job and started studying and researching customer service by myself. But just as I was starting to put in all that effort, I suddenly received an email from Jim.
"Long time no see, how are you? Finally getting married to Anne. We've decided to buy a new house, so come visit me. Sorry, I'm the only happy one."
The content of the message was just to brag. I blocked his number, but I hadn't blocked his email. The email went out of his way to include a photo of him and Anne's wedding photos and picture of their house. He's a really shifty guy who went out of his way to contact me through email just because I blocked his number. He stole my fiancé, and now he's getting married. I was shocked, but I didn't care about the two of them anymore, so I decided to let it go. I was looking at their pictures during my break at work, and Kathy, who happened to be there, asked me if they were my friends. She saw Anne in her wedding dress in the photo and was curious. "Oh, no, it's an ex-friend," I answered vaguely. Kathy looked at me strangely. I didn't care anymore. I decided to tell Kathy the whole story honestly. Kathy was surprised to hear what I had to say. I'm so sorry you've had such a hard time. She sympathized with me. Right after I was betrayed, I was so emotionally messed up that I couldn't handle it, I told her. Kathy replied, saying, Well, of course. I was glad to hear her words of sympathy. When I thanked her, Kathy looked at the photo again and said, What? Wait, this person... She was staring at Anne's face in the photo. I said, What's wrong? Do you know this woman? Kathy looked a little puzzled. Where did you meet this person? She asked. I was curious what she was thinking. She was a senior employee of the company I used to work at, I told her. She said, Oh yeah? Is she still with that company? Kathy's expression became even more troubled when I told her that Anne had already left the company, moved out, and was nowhere to be found. Our break ended mid-conversation, so I wasn't able to ask her any more questions that day. Jim sent me more bragging emails later. I didn't really care about them, but I was curious, so I looked at the email. The contents of the emails would talk about going to fancy restaurants or traveling to different countries, or staying at an expensive hotel suite, just bragging about thoughtless things like that. Then, I began to wonder. Jim didn't have a stable job. I don't know what Anne does for work now, but back at the company she wasn't making much. The company we worked for was a small business, and the salaries were average, or a little lower than average. So the rich life that Jim brags about would have been impossible to achieve on Anne's salary at the time. And with Jim's money, it was even more impossible. But it was none of my business. So I decided to go on with my life as usual. Then one day, during a break at work, Kathy called me over. I wondered what was going on. She wanted to ask me some questions about Anne. It's not nice to ask about someone who betrayed you. I'm sorry to pour salt on your wounds. Kathy prefaced and told me the reason. It was a startling story, I thought. The Anne I know? On the other hand, I also thought, it's possible, so I decided to cooperate with Kathy. We both thought of places that Anne might frequent based on her interests and taste. After that, we steadily went to various places and succeeded in finding Anne. However, I knew that if I contacted her, I would lose track of her again. So Kathy decided to talk to her. Kathy is very good with people. Anne gradually opened up to her, and she began to reveal her own misdeeds. Once I had gathered some evidence, I contacted Jim. I went to the trouble of unblocking his number, and I called him. Jim answered the phone and didn't seem surprised.
What's up? Too jealous of my life?
He asked me. I chuckled and said, I just thought I should give you a heads up. Jim overreacted to what I said. He was ranting about how jealous I was of him. I ignored him and continued. About Anne. You're not being deceived, are you? You mentioned before that you bought a new house. Is it in your name? Jim mumbled back.
No, it's, in Anne's name.
Just as I thought. Was that a lump sum purchased by Anne?
A lump sum would be impossible. She said she took out a loan.
You didn't give her any money, did you?
As a man, I can't ask her to pay the whole amount, can I? I gave her about $20,000 from my savings.
Wow, I see. What else? Did she ask you to bring her anything else?
Yeah, something like government documents. I helped her sign some difficult documents.
Wow, I see.
Hey, what's your point, man?
Jim said to me in frustration. It's a scam. Anne tricked you. Of course, Jim didn't believe me.
Huh? What are you talking about? There's no way Anne would do that.
He said. I continued in a voice that was deliberately sympathetic, as if I was trying to make sure Jim's nerves were on the edge. She does seem like an angel, right? I was fooled too.
What the hell? Anne is my fiance, not yours. I won't allow you to speak ill of my Anne.
Alright, whatever. You've been warned.
You're a loser, you lunkhead. Don't ever contact me again.
With that, Jim hung up. I realized there was nothing I could do at that point. I decided to reach out to Anne and Jim in another way. Kathy and I decided to go through with the other plan. Kathy, who had become good friends with Anne, wanted to ask Anne out on a double date. At that moment, Kathy told Anne, "I know of an easier way to make more money," and invited her out. We decided to meet at a restaurant with a private room. Anne and Jim sat down with me and Kathy. They were surprised to see me. "Why is it you?"
What the hell are you doing here?
They were both very panicked. "I had to do this to see you two. I'm sorry." Anne, very panicked, started to get angry. "Don't mess with me! I'm going home!" But Kathy stopped the very angry Anne from leaving. "Wait, if you run away, I'm calling the police." At those words, Anne's eyes went wide. "Weren't you on my side? Why are you with Mike?" "Mike is my coworker. We're here to punish you." "Punish?" Kathy continued to press Anne, who was upset. "Anne, you are committing marriage fraud, including this case with Jim, aren't you?" Anne said, "What?" in a completely different tone than normal. Then Jim, too, became dismayed.
Hey, Mike, you're the one who told this woman to do something, didn't you?
And he grabbed me. I took one look at Jim and said in a low voice, "Shut up and listen." When he quieted down, Kathy continued her story. "I was in Paris about 6 years ago. I had an American friend named Bill." As soon as Kathy said the word Bill, Anne's face scrunched up. "Yes, the Bill that you know. You were engaged to be married to him. But you took the $30,000 for the wedding and fled back to the States, right?" Anne was silent, her eyes fluttering. Jim was startled.
You're lying, aren't you? No way,
he says. "He was so depressed because you betrayed him. Bill's parents were friends with my parents, so Bill's parents are very important to me. I've been looking for the person who made his mother cry for a long time, and finally found you. Bill and his parents are here today." Kathy's top voice echoed through the room. The next moment, the door to the private room opened. 3 people entered the room. Anne was startled at the sight of them. And the next thing she knew, Anne was trying to get away, but everyone present prevented her from doing so. And then we turned her in to the police for committing marriage fraud. Jim watched Anne get arrested with a surprised look on his face.
All the money you've been giving me to live a luxurious life? It was all a scam? Thank you, Mike. I was almost fooled, too.
And he thanked me like we were old friends. So I shoved Jim away. I said, "What are you talking about? I haven't forgiven you. I'm going to bill you for alimony. I know your work and home address. Because I hired a detective to get that information. You can't run away from this." As per that declaration, I filed a claim for alimony with Jim through my lawyer. I got him to pay me exactly what he owed me. And of course, I also charged Anne, who had been arrested. Thus, Anne had to pay a large amount of debt, including the fine for fraud. Anne's parents paid the money she got by scamming Bill on her behalf. Although it is unlikely that Anne will ever change her mind, we hope that she will pay her parents back. After that, I got closer to Kathy because of this incident, and we started dating. And to my surprise, I found out that the restaurant was owned by Kathy's father, and he owned several stores. Kathy's father saw how I was working and asked me if I would like to be his son-in-law. Apparently, he was saying that for a while. Kathy didn't like that suggestion at first, but she came to like my personality. She wants us to run a restaurant together in the future. And so, after a steady relationship, we decided to get married. I never thought my life would turn out this way, but I cherish the relationship that I have built with Kathy. I want to enjoy a happy married life with her. I was surprised to find out that his ex-fiance was a swindler, but Mike may have been lucky. If he had stayed with Anne, he would not be happy. He ended up in the best situation after it all went down. Anne finally got what she deserved, and we couldn't be happier. I hope Mike and Kathy will have a happy married life from now on.